Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. Hope all is well at your end and enjoying life. Today, we will be discussing the remaining lecture of the 12th week uh, conflict and negotiation. In the last lecture, we talked about conflict, sources of conflict, types of conflict, functional and dysfunctional, and we also said some strategies in order to uh, decrease the conflict. In today's lecture, we will be talking about negotiation. What is negotiation and why is negotiation important? What is the process and what are the stages of negotiation? Negotiation is a method by which people settle differences. They make settlement of differences. It's a process by which compromise or agreement is reached while avoiding argument and dispute. When there is a conflict, when there is a dispute, so in order to solve and avoid those conflicts and disputes and arguments, we negotiate. So, in any agreement uh, of conflict between the individual, between the group, between the organization is negotiation. Uh, any disagreement, individuals uh, understandably aim to achieve the best possible outcome for their position. Maybe for the organization they represent, or maybe the individually. Uh, However, the principles of fairness, seeking mutual benefit and maintaining a relationship, a constructive relationship, are the keys to be successful and to have successful outcome. A negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties are accepting and they find an acceptable way. In a negotiation, each party tries to persuade, motivate the other to agree with him or her point of view. By negotiating, all uh, involved parties are trying to avoid arguing, but they agree to reach some of the compromise. If you remember, we also studied the strategy in conflict strategies, avoidance strategies, or reduction strategies. Uh, we studied compromise, win-lose strategy. So negotiations involve some give and take. Um, that's like barter system. You give and I take, which means one party will always come out on top of the negotiation. The other party must concede, even if that concession is nominal. Um, Parties involved in negotiations can vary. They can include talks between buyers, sellers, employers, prospective employee, government, or two countries, even, just like we are having with Taliban. The negotiations between American and Taliban finished, and now the intra talks begin with the Afghan and Taliban. So these are called negotiations. Uh, Negotiation involves two or more parties who come together to reach some end goal through compromise or resolution. Maybe there is a compromise, or maybe there is a resolution. That is win-win situation, that is lose-lose situation, or that is win-lose situation. We studied in conflict, if you remember. One party will put its position forward while the other will either accept their condition presented or counter with its own position. He may be against that position. The process will continue until both parties agree to a resolution. They come to a mutual agreement. Uh, if we come to the length of the time. So the length of time for negotiation to take place depends on the circumstances, the situation that of the discussion of the negotiation. A negotiation can take as little as a few minutes, or maybe in some complex cases they can take months, just like we have in Taliban. From January we have been waiting for that, and about 11 or 12 months with the American. So uh, we can give lots of examples in it. For example, a buyer and a seller may negotiate for minutes or hours for the sale of a car, but the governments of two or more countries may take months or years to negotiate the terms of a trade deal, or maybe a peace deal, just like we have. uh, Conflicting parties attempt to resolve their divergent goals by redefining the terms of their interdependence. They need to consider desired outcomes, tactics, and deal design in the scope of the negotiation. There are some key factors in negotiating, uh, uh, some key elements or factors which will play if we are going to be successful in the negotiation. They can be the parties involved in them, the relationships, the communication, the alternatives, the realistic options, legitimate claims, levels of commitment. These are the factors that play in the negotiation. So I think I've missed these points, but we will say it verbally. So the first factor is the parties involved. The party involved means who are the parties in the negotiation and what are their interests. What is the background of all involved, and how does that affect their position in the discussion. Uh, Second component or second factor is relationships. Relationship means that what is the relationship between the parties and their intermediaries in the negotiation. How are the parties connected, and what role does that play in the term of the negotiation process. Third component is communication. Communication factor means that how will the needs of the parties involved be best communicated in order to secure their agreements through negotiation. What is the most effective way to convey the desired outcomes and the needs, and how can the party be certain they are being heard. These are the communication factors. The fourth one, sorry, is alternatives. Alternative means, are there any alternatives to what either party initially wants? If a direct agreement is not possible, will the parties need to seek substitute outcomes? It means, are there any alternatives that kept in mind for them? Next is realistic options. Realistic option means what options may be possible to achieve that outcome. Have the parties express where they are maybe flexible in their demands or no. Legitimate claims is the sixth one. Legitimate claims means are the demands that are taken by the both parties are legitimate, legal or not. And level of commitment is the last component. It means what is the amount of commitment required to deliver outcome of the negotiation. What is at stake for each party, and do the negotiation consider the efforts that will need to be made or achieve the negotiated results. Um, do both the parties are committed or not to the decisions they come to, they agree to. So these were the factors or components of the negotiation. Now we come to uh, the bargaining strategies. Uh, the We use the term negotiation and bargaining interchangeably. They can be used for one another, bargaining or uh, negotiation. Uh, 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 Bargaining or negotiation, earlier we defined that there are two strategies for bargaining, and they can be called distributive bargaining and uh, integrative bargaining. Uh, Distributive bargaining differ in their goal and motivation. They focus uh, their interest, the information sharing, and the duration of relationship. Uh, Bargaining means that negotiation that seeks to divide up a fixed amount of resources. There is a win-lose situation. For example, labor management negotiations. Uh, Integrative bargaining, on the other hand, means negotiation that seeks one or more settlements that can create a win solution. So, distributive bargaining means uh, it is just a traditional fixed pie approach. That is, negotiators see the situation as a pie, as a meat pie that they have to divide between them. Each tries to get more of the pie, and when each party wants more, it's a win-lose situation, which is a compromise we said earlier. For example, we say that managers may compete over shares for a budget. If marketing gets a 10% increase in its budget, another department such as R&D, research and development, will need to decrease its budget by 10% to offset the marketing increase. So look, 10% increase in the marketing and 10% decrease in the R&D department. So focusing on a fixed pie is a common mistake in negotiation, because this view limits the creative solutions possible. While integrative approach means that it's a newer approach, it's a more creative approach to negotiations. Uh, in this approach, both parties look for ways to integrate, to unite their goals under a larger umbrella. That is, they look for ways to expand the pie. While in distributive, they were dividing the pie. Here, they are expanding the pie, so that each party gets more. This is also called a win-win approach. If you remember, win-win approach was a distributive, integrative approach, a participative approach. The first step of the integrative approach is to enter the negotiation from a cooperative rather than adversarial stance. You have to come from adversarial stance or adversarial position or adversarial situation to a cooperative stance or a group position. The second step is listening. Listening develops trust as each party learns what the other wants, and every one involved arrives at a mutual understanding. Uh, then all parties can explore ways to achieve the individual's goal. The general idea is if we put our heads together, we can find a solution that addresses everybody's needs. It means that if we gather, we will reach to a mutual consent. Uh, we can say that unfortunately, integrative outcomes are not the norm. They have not been become a normal settlement in the organization. Uh, if we look at the chart of this strategy, uh, these goals are uh, the bargaining characteristics and distributive bargaining and integrative bargaining. Uh, if we look at this, the bargaining characteristic of goal is that in distributive they get all the pie you can, while in integrative they expand the pie. Motivation of the distributive bargaining is a win-lose situation, while in integrative bargaining it is uh, uh, a win-win situation. It's the focus of distributive bargaining is on positions, while integrative bargaining it's on interests. Information sharing and distributive bargaining is low, while in integrative bargaining the information sharing is high. Duration of relationship of distributive bargaining is short term because it's a win-lose situation. Then, while in integrative bargaining, it's long term because we are expanding the pie. We are giving a motivation, which is a win-win situation. Information sharing is also high in this position. So the next is what are the fundamentals of negotiating. You have to setting the limits, you have to point the targets, you have to resist to the point that you are going to discuss. Next is assessing power. You have to evaluate the power, you have to consider alternatives. What are the alternatives for this, as we earlier studied in the factors of negotiations, and what are the skills required for this negotiation. Uh, yeah. If we come to the tactics and the bargaining zone, uh, we will study it like this, that look at the chart, the exhibit chart. It says that parties A and B represent two negotiations. Each one has a target point that defines what he or she would like to achieve. They have some points that what would they like to achieve. Each also has a resistance point. If you look at, there is a resistance point, B also has a resistance point, and A also has a resistance point, which marks the lowest outcome that is acceptable. If you look at their outcome there, so their outcome is the lowest one. The point below which they would break off negotiation rather than accept a less favorable settlement. The area between 2 points makes up each one's aspiration range. As long as there is some overlap between A's and B's aspiration ranges, there exists a settlement range in which each one's aspiration can be met. So in distributive tactics, we make an aggressive first offer, which reveals a deadline, and integrative tactics, we bargain in teams, we put more issues on the table, and we don't compromise. Next, we come to the negotiation process. There are five most stages of process of this negotiation, and that can be preparation and planning, defining of ground rules, clarification and justification, uh, bargaining and problem solving, and the last one is closure and implementation. The first step is preparing and planning, which is also called investigation. The first tip is a negotiation or the preparing and planning stage. It is the investigation stage, your information gathering stage. This is a stage which is commonly ignored. Of course, it is the first place to begin with yourself. What are your goals for the negotiation? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to concede, and what would you absolutely not concede? Uh, During the negotiation, you will inevitably be faced with making choices. It's best to know what you want so that in the heat of that moment you are able to make the best decision. For example, if you will be negotiating for a new job, you are offered a new job. Uh, Ask yourself, what do you value most in this new job? Is it the salary? Is it the working with co-workers whom I like, the people who I'm going to work with? I love them, therefore I'm going to join that job. Or is it a prestigious company, or working for a certain geographic area. For example, it's near to your home, or maybe that is the capital, maybe that's Kabul or any other um, uh, secure area, or uh, any other reasons. So you prepare for that negotiation with them. The next is definition of ground rules. uh, Ground rules. In ground rules we have BATNA. BATNA means the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. uh, uh, One important part of the investigation and planning phase is to determine your BATNA, your best alternative negotiated agreement, which is an acronym, as I earlier said, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Uh, Talking about your partner is important to helping you decide whether to accept an offer you receive during the negotiation. In early stage that we said we are preparing the information, we are investigating the information. Now you are deciding whether to accept the offer or not. You need to know what are your alternatives. You have to keep in mind some alternatives in your mind. If you have various alternatives, you can look at the proposed deal more critically. Uh, for example, could you get a better outcome than the proposed deal? Your BATNA, or best alternative to negotiated team, will help you reject an unfair or unfavorable deal. On the other hand, if the deal is better than another outcome, you can get that. That is better than your BATNA, then you should of course accept that. Uh, Thinking about in common sense, when you know your opponent is desperate for a deal, so you can demand much more. If the offer, if you know that the person is uh, choosing you because you are the best fit, so you can demand better. You can demand high because you know that they like you, and you are the best choice for them. If it looks like they have a lot of other options outside the negotiation, so of course you will be more likely to make concessions. You will then have a lose win situation. Uh, the next is uh, clarification and justification, the third stage, which is also called presentation stage. So of course all phases are important. The presentation or the clarification and justification stage is the most uh, um, important stage, which receives the most attention. uh, but before this stage, the two others are also very important, and they are equally important. uh, in this phase, you assemble the information you have gathered in a way that supports your opinion. For example, earlier example, we said in a job hiring or salary negotiation situation, you can present facts that show what you have contributed to that organization in the past, which in turn demonstrates your value in the organization. If you demand for them the salary increment in the organization, so now what you have put a value to the organization, what were the outcomes in the organization, what have you achieved highly than other employees, so that you can be compensated and your salary can be increased. uh, so in presentation stage, uh, we are preparing the gathered information, and we will take action on that. The next is bargaining and problem solving stage, which is also called only bargaining stage 2. In some books it's only written bargaining stage. In this stage, or during this stage, each party discusses their goals and seeks to get to an agreement, to reach to an agreement. uh, in this stage, the normal process is making concessions, discounts, uh, giving up one thing to get something else in return. It's just like we said earlier, that it's a barter system. give something and you take something. Uh, in negotiation, making a concession or discount is not a sign of weakness. Parties expect to give some of their goals. Rather, concessions demonstrate cooperativeness and help move the negotiation toward its conclusion. If you don't discount in negotiation, you cannot move ahead. So in negotiation, one will give concession. Concession means بتوافق بها एक चीज़ें as نسبة conflict کې هم مونږ وویل چې conflict هغه وخت resolve کیږي reduce کیږي کله چې مونږ یو څه د لاسه ورکوو یو توافق ته رسیږو نو مونږ بیا په negotiation stage کې هم چې دی توافق هله کیږي negotiation هله مخکې ځي چې کله مونږ یو څه د لاسه ورکوو ووایو چې صحیح ده دا زه د لاسه ورکوم چې تر څو مونږ یو ریزلټ ته ورسیږي. No, this was the fourth stage of negotiation process, in which we bargain, in which we mostly do concession, we discount, and we reach to a final achievement, and that is goal. The last stage is closure and also implementation. Closure and implementation. The best part or important part of the negotiation is the closure. At the close of a negotiation, you and the other party have either come to an agreement on the terms, or one party has decided that the final offer is unacceptable and therefore must be walked away from. Maybe that someone on the other party in the negotiation stage accepts that, or maybe that is denied. Most negotiators assume that if their best offer has been rejected, there is nothing left to do. You made your best offer and that's the best you can do. So the closure and implementation stage is the last stage of the a negotiation process, in which the party has to end and come to an agreement. Maybe that is agreement or disagreement. Sometimes at the end of the negotiation it's clear why a deal was not reached, but if you are confused about why a deal did not happen, consider making a follow-up of this situation or the negotiation. Even though you may not win the deal back in the end, but you might learn something that is useful for future negotiations. What is more, the other party may be more willing to disclose the information if they think, or if they don't think you are in a selling mode in the negotiation. These were the 5 process stages of the negotiation, which were called preparing, definition of ground rules, which was also called BATNA, clarification and justification, bargaining and problem solving, and the end, closure. Now, how to create and claim the value. Claiming the value is very important. You have to value the goal that you are going to reach, or you are going to achieve. So in claiming and creating value, we have managing the deals, 4 points: managing information, managing the process, and beyond the deal. Managing deal means that information and skills and concessions that we are going to talk about. What are the information we are gathering, what are the skills required, and what are the concessions we will do for the negotiation. Strategies can be multi-issue proposals, conceding on low value items while getting concession on high value items. The next is managing information. Small number of strong arguments can be done within the negotiation. Understanding the other negotiator needs, what is his or her need in during the negotiation, and we investigate the approach to negotiations. which approach is the best approach to reach to the conclusion, resolution. Next is managing information. Managing information means I think it has come twice, or no, I just okay, managing the process. Managing the process, we come to tactics. Is the negotiation should be delaying or stalling the negotiation, or should we have set deadlines for them or no? What will be the risk for this agreement? So risk evaluation is important. uh, Ignoring personal attacks and refocus on the substantive problem. uh, just like the deal between the intra-talks with the Afghan government, the Taliban, there are attacks on the the person or the personality of them, and later they came to an agreement that we will not take on personal, but we will come to a deal. Still there is no deal, and the negotiations strategies are not yet done. Anyways, the last point in valuing and creating uh, uh, the value is beyond the deal, uh, considering other aspects in addition to best possible a deal can be implementation, should be social capital, that will be relationship building, reputation of both parties, and the ethical negotiation. There should be no unethical negotiations. uh, there can also be gender and differentiation. You can value the gender uh, during the conflict. Women compared to men tend to be focusing more on relationship consequences, since women are more prone to affection, atifi, khuyleri, so therefore they will focus on relationship, and they females will set low targets. They will use fewer alternatives, and the process of course will be very much competitive. Women have better outcomes in conflict when they are going to sit on the negotiation table, uh, when they approach to a disagreement collaboratively. So simply we say that effective negotiators need to engage in both collaboration and competition in order to obtain outcomes or reach to a goal. This was all about negotiation, types of negotiation, and process of negotiation, and some strategies which were distributive and integrative approach. If you've got any questions regarding negotiations, so let me know. You can WhatsApp me, or you can comment on the LMS. Thank you very much. Have a good day and have a good week. Salam.